Aloha and welcome to Tuesday Talks. Super excited to have you guys here. We're still keeping it tropical despite the cool down of the weather. We're going to introduce some very special guests today. How's it going, everybody?
Hi there.
Really, what a setup. Where are you at right now?
I'm coming to you from Brooklyn, New York.
Nice. Very cool. You're obviously the most professional person we've had on with your setup. No offense to everybody else.
You can't make cocktails and not, look like a pro, right? At least you got to look like you know what you're doing.
Right. And you're a little more minimalist here with your background and setup.
Yeah, I'm in the distillery offices in Belize, but there's no windows in my office, so there's no.
I'm imagining outside is a little more beautiful.
Well, actually, it was a thunderstorm just a couple of minutes ago, so it's a lot quieter right now.
There you go. Right on. Chastity.
Hi.
What's happening?
You're in the Windy City.
Where you at?
In the Windy City.
Windy City.
Yeah. It's getting chilly outside.
Is it windy and cold yet or not yet?
It's getting there. Fall is here.
Happening.
It's happening.
Right. I'm in Vegas. We kind of don't really have that, which is nice. Yeah. Well, I went through the pain of 115, so.
I don't want that either.
No, you don't want that. Steva.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm in Birmingham where it will be like 75 degrees for the next 4 weeks. So it's.
There you go.
That's great.
Aaron, you're outside this time with the plants that you haven't grown.
Yeah, no, I upgraded my tree. I upgraded my tree.
Right on.
It's the tropical oasis of Baltimore, Maryland. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What a destination for that.
Sure.
All right. Well, we have a very cool show for you guys today. Going green in rum production. So Ed, as master distiller, is going to give a lot of background on kind of traditional production and then what those guys are doing there. Julie, owner of many amazing bars, a lot of the reason that many of us are here, also global brand ambassador for Copalli, is going to give a little bit of her context and background on sustainability at the bar, make us an amazing cocktail. As always, chat box and questions. If you guys are on Crowdcast or Facebook Live, please hit us with questions. We'll try and integrate them. Always appreciate when you share the event. Presentation 30 to 40 minutes. Cocktail session for 10. Questions with the Tiki fam after that. So a little bit of background for everybody. So Julie Reiner, Copalli Global Brand Ambassador, born and raised in Honolulu, has worked extensively in SF and NYC, and is certainly a pioneer in the cocktail bar and restaurant scene. Owner of several iconic establishments over the years, including more recently Leyenda and Clover Club in NYC, both amazing spots in Brooklyn. Recognized nationally in several industry publications, including Food and Wine Enthusiast, and authored the 20 book, The Craft Cocktail Party. She was a James Beard Award nominee. I'm sure there's a lot more that we could talk about. Moving on to Ed Teach, so President Master Distillery, Copalli Distillery. He was involved in all the construction, commissioning, and development of the distillery and the rum prior to being a part of Copalli. Ed ran his own distillery in Westchester, New York for 10 years. Where in Westchester, by the way, Ed?
Portchester.
Oh, wow. Nice. I worked in White Plains for a little while. So I have a little bit of Westchester experience.
Right down 287.
There you go. There you go. He received the Master of Science in Industrial Administration. He's a native New Yorker, but spending his time in beautiful Belize, or the office, at least.
Right, the office, right.
So we'll kick over to you and your deck here.
Okay. Let me
Oh, no. Wait, sorry.
You're going to do a video, right?
We're doing a video. I almost forgot, but I didn't. All right. Let me get that queued up. All right, we got a quick video here for you guys to give a little visual context.
Here at Copalli Rum Distillery, we're making a certified organic, estate-grown, single-origin rum. The ingredients in this rum are really just sugarcane juice, yeast, and rainwater. Historically, distilleries have just dumped their waste right into the water or right onto the land. Being a single estate rum, we actually have control of the entire process. We designed this distillery to be zero impact. We didn't only want to not do any harm to the environment, but we actually want to do it in the environment. It's basically a closed loop system. We're utilizing all of the waste on site. The steps of the zero waste distillery really start in the fields. First, we plant. We harvest by hand, creating local labor and reducing waste. The sugarcane is then brought to the sugarcane mill where it's crushed. The juice goes to the fermentation tanks. The waste product is dried just enough to go right into the boiler. The boiler then makes steam for the distillation process. The waste from the distillation is then used as fertilizer, put back in the fields, and then we plant all over again. The rainforest is sort of like the lungs of the world, and it's so important that we maintain a healthy ecosystem here. This really is one of the cleanest rums available. We're not adding anything to it. When you're drinking this rum, you know exactly what it is. Just very clean, organic. You can really embody the spirit of this place.
Beautiful. I thought that was Baltimore for a second.
Close by. Oh, you know, it's an easy mistake to make.
Right on. All right. So let's get it started. I'm going to hand it over to you. And
Okay.
I'd love to hear about kind of your process and especially the context of, what is traditional volumetric rum production and how that's done and how it's maybe not as sustainable and then what you guys are doing.
Right. Yeah, so let's talk about kind of, how things are done in general in the rum industry and, maybe how it's a little bit different, how we do things a little differently and highlight those differences. Oh, let's go back. That got away from me. Okay. So, hybridized sugarcane and non-hybridized. So those are fine terms, but I think I'd rather think about those terms as opposed to in more like commercial sugarcane production and maybe varietal in thinking about that way. So, it's hybridized, sugarcane is a worldwide commodity. It's produced by very efficient plants and the idea of factories, and the idea is to grow a specific type of sugarcane plant that is optimized for sugar extraction. So what you want from that kind of plant is a very high sugar content per pound of plant. You want high fiber content because after you squeeze and extract the juice, the leftover fibers are going to go ahead and run energy producing equipment for the plant to provide steam and electricity. And if you maximize those two things, the juice itself is really what that tastes like isn't very important, right? Because really what you're doing is you're just recreating, you're looking to create sugar. So the juice isn't that important. When you're thinking about a non-hybridized or a varietal sugarcane like we produce, the one thing that's most important is the flavor of the juice, right? So it's like thinking about table grapes versus wine grapes. Those things they're both grapes, but they taste completely different because of the quality of the juice and what you're going to do with them.
Is it right to think about it as one is really concerned with yield and the other is concerned with flavor profile?
That's exactly it, right? So it's really what you're doing is you're trying to maximize the efficiency of the plant to produce sugar to sell in a commercial market, in a commodity market, and the other is to produce, a special product that has, unique flavor and characteristics. So, for the varietals, they're going to have less sugar. We have less fiber. They're actually a little bit softer, so they're even thought of as chewing cane. And you can take a bite out of it and chew and get the juice that far. Also, the growing cycle is a little longer. Commercial cane is usually like 9 months. You can turn the field around. For our canes, it's usually 12 to 15 months. And like I said, the flavor of the juices are really of paramount importance. That's really the principal differences that we're looking at in those types of sugarcane that's grown. For how it's harvested, virtually everyone harvests cane, and certainly for commercial sugarcane production, it's used mechanical harvesters. It's certainly most efficient, it's higher yield, versus what we do, or a lot of small distilleries who do, they'll hand cut the harvest. So there's, it's not as efficient to the mill, there's lower yields. For a machine harvester, you could basically do 30 tons an hour. For our hand harvest, we'll do 30 to 35 tons a day. So that's the kind of differential you get, and it's also the impacting on the fields too, right? You have to grow your fields in a specific way for the harvester to handle it. Doesn't usually necessarily take into account the natural contours and the drainage of the land. So it's really to optimize for the machine's production.
And as a lot of that, from my understanding, is many people will burn those fields too in order to run those machines through them.
Right, and not all do, but for a lot of commercial grains, commercial sugarcane, they do burn the fields. It reduces the amount of excess material that's not sugar-based, right? So all the extra leaves and things like that. So the machines can run through it a little bit faster. It's a little bit a more efficient product for the plant, the sugar manufacturer to operate. I will say that for the Martinique guys, for the rum agricultural guys, they don't burn the fields either. So they use machine harvesting, but they don't burn their fields. They just they use the cane as
I don't know. We actually didn't discuss it, but I founded a cachaça brand that we work with a third generation producer, and I think we're going to see a lot of similarities in terms of the way you guys produce and she produces. But in industrial cachaça, there is the burning, there is the
exactly right.
And artisanal is totally what you're describing. There is a question from the chat. What type of sugarcane name or number do you use?
Well, we basically have two kinds. They're kind of local varieties, or they've evolved locally. So we haven't had them DNA typed. We basically call them red and black based on their color characteristics. I can't really go much more into depth about that, but they're not the brittle hard cane that's grown in the north here in Belize for sugar production.
Got it. Cool.
Now moving on to certainly now everybody knows that rum is made from sugarcane, but the substrate that's used to make rum can be completely different. So basically 95% of the rum made in the world is based from molasses. I like to call basically molasses as industrial waste, but it's certainly the residual of sugar production, from white sugar production. And it's a traded commodity. The more and more efficient that sugarcane plants get, the poorer quality of the molasses that comes out of it. There's certainly, in rum production now, since it's a commodity and you basically buy it by the tanker load, there's not often a sense of place with the molasses based on where the rum is produced, right? So since most sugar production has left the Caribbean or stopped in the Caribbean, you often get their molasses from other places. So there's really not a sense of place in the rum itself, unless you're talking about, how they do it. But as far as, the agricultural product itself, there's not there.
Yeah, I like to make that analogy as well when I'm talking to people, and kind of like, I feel like sugarcane produced rum has a lot of similarities to agave distillates, right? Like it's
That's right.
You have where you grow it as an impact, the water, all those things really come to bear in a way that maybe is less so with the majority, certainly, of molasses-based distillates out there.
Right. And one thing I also like to add is that if you think about it, rums made from sugarcane juice are, depending on the process, but generally, if you're running your boiler on the leftover cane fibers, is generally a carbon neutral process.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for molasses-based rums, it's inherently not, right?
Because of the transportation aspect?
Well, the transportation, and you're basically, when you have to heat it again to redistill it, right, you're basically expending more energy than in carbon. You're releasing more carbon to run the stills than what's been released from the sugar.
That makes sense.
Right.
We have another question for you here. How long after harvest does sugarcane begin to produce unwanted bacteria or off flavors? Like cut to press to, what have you.
Well, we cut the press. It's usually within an hour or so. I think you can probably hold it for about 12 to 18 hours before you start to get too much spontaneous fermentation. But that's usually the hours. You want to press as soon as it's harvested.
Yeah, it's great.
For us, you extract the cane, you press it right. You cut the cane, you extract it right away. You only use the first couple of pressings because it's like you press a grape. The more times you press it, the less quality of the wine that comes out of there. It's highly perishable. It's got to be locally produced. Right, even though there's sugarcane fields in the north of Belize, we can't use those fields even if we wanted to, because the transportation is too long to get here.
Right.
And it does, as you said, sugarcane does have a sense of place. It is like any other agricultural product. When we're running the stills and we're tasting the rum as it comes in, we can tell the difference even from different sections of the field. We can tell if it's from the northern or the western part of the fields as it comes in. It all depends on, how much drainage there's been or sunlight and all those things that goes in it. You really can tell the difference. Column stills versus pot stills. This might be a little bit. Well, inherently, there's nothing wrong with a column still. I don't want to say that column still rums are bad, but stills are really a separation technology, right? And what you're doing is you're really trying to capture the alcohol. So a column in a continuous still is really an efficient process. So if you're really trying to get the most alcohol the fastest way possible at the cheapest expenditure of dollars, it's really with a column still. Now, the trade-off with that is that with a column still, as the distillate comes off, it's coming off at a very narrow band of flavor at a constant alcohol percentage. So that's what you're giving up. So you're getting a lot of efficiencies, but since it's coming off at, depending on what the column produces, if it's a light rum, it's coming off at 188 proof or something like that. It's a very narrow band of flavors. Or if it's coming off at 150 proof, that's still it's all the volatiles that can exist at 150 proof at that temperature that alcohol comes out with. A pot still, on the other hand, is while certainly less efficient and certainly in a batch mode, it does provide you a broader spectrum of flavors from the underlying product that you're distilling, right? And so if you're growing something that has a lot of flavor and characters, like our non-hybrid sugarcane, right? You really want to capture as much of those flavors too, because as it comes off the still, it starts off at a higher alcohol percentage and it declines. And as it's declining, different layers of flavors are going to come off that still. And that's something that's impossible to capture on a column still.
Yeah, I like to to help people understand that, pot stills were effectively the first kind of stills. Column stills were in, technological advancement, quote unquote, if you will, to drive efficiency. right? So it's certainly more efficient. And I think you danced around it in a way that does make sense. It's not necessarily that everything off a column still is inferior per se, but certainly you're getting more character of the underlying base material in a pot still 100%. There's no way around that.
Right. That's what you're getting. Right. So depending on what you're looking for from your rum, I mean, we have a column still here, and we use it for, blending at certain products or as a base for some of our, the flavor rums we're developing. But as far as, really getting the character of the sugarcane juice, it really comes from the pot still. That's where it comes from. Water certainly is important especially in molasses rum production. You use a lot of water. So the way to think about it is not so much about, what the source is, whether it's municipal or it comes from a natural source, but really what the strain on the water resources is, right? So if you're from an area that's rich in water and you can add it and you treat it and put it back in there, there's not necessarily inherently bad about using molasses. But if you're from an area that has, 20 inches of rainfall a year and you're drilling wells, 200 feet deep and lowering the water table every time, you're running your distillery, that's a problem. So I think it's, one of the things we have to think about is as a distillery, one of the things you're harvesting is you're harvesting water from your environment that you're in, right? And you want to be able to do that in a responsible way that doesn't, reduce that resource to, the area that you're in, right? So maybe the idea of, buying tankers of molasses and shipping them to, I don't know, let's say Las Vegas, and running a rum distillery in Las Vegas isn't very responsible from, a water resource management point of view.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to think about it. Go ahead.
Right. On the other hand, if you're doing it here in Belize, which gets 180 inches of rain a year, and you're basically capturing that resource, one, in the sugarcane juice itself, and two, in the rainwater that you're collecting, and to the degree that in the wells, in the limestone rock formations here, that's a different use. That might be viewed as a more responsible use of water. So that's kind of, separate from the fact that we think, using rainwater to blend with our rums is just, makes them taste better. It's also a responsible use of the water resources that we have at our hands to do it that way, as opposed to pulling it from a river or a snowpack or aquifers that are already strained.
Yeah, I like that way of thinking about it. It looks a little bit like you might be got some water containers up in Brooklyn over there.
Yeah, that does look like New York City.
So probably if you're bringing water from Brooklyn to get to Belize, that might not be the best social impact.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's great. It's interesting. It's a good way to think about it. I mean, again, a lot of what we're talking about is areas with heavy rainfall. But if you have a distillery in the middle of the desert, thinking about water is totally different than thinking about it in a tropical zone, right?
Yeah, because effectively we are harvesting water, right? In the products that we make, we're harvesting water.
We got another couple questions here.
Sure.
Oh, you're gonna get this is actually perfect. There's a crop rotation question. So why don't you tell us about that?
Okay, so actually, for our experience, it's actually been very interesting for crop management, crop rotation. So for standard sugarcane fields, like the ones they use in the north, there's heavy use of chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and they absolutely have to have, you have to use some kind of crop rotation to rejuvenate the land, right? Because you basically, they work it hard up there. Down here in our fields, we're organic, so we don't use any chemicals, no pesticides. We use bio methods of pest management. So we kind of like when pythons are in the fields, except maybe the harvesters are not that excited, but it certainly keeps the rat population down. And we also, some of the, what we use to fertilize and irrigate the fields is the leftover stillage from the distillation process, vinasse. We actually use that and return that to the fields for a fertilization and irrigation. So one of the things that's typical in sugarcane fields is, so sugarcane, when you cut it, it grows back. It's like your regular grass. So what most fields do, especially in commercial fields, you'll see that the crop yields declines year after year to the point where they basically have to let the field rest and grow something else to kind of add nitrogen back to the fields. What we've discovered, much to our surprise, is that every time we grow and the field regrows itself, our yields have actually increased over the last 4 years. So we haven't had to give the fields a kind of rest or done any kind of crop rotation. So we're not really sure what's going on with our fields. But our general expectation is, we start a field, when we plant a field, we get about 30 tons. The second year, we get about 35 tons per acre. And we've gone as high as 45 tons. Whereas the fields in the north that use lots of chemicals, fertilizers, and pesticides, their average yield is about 25 tons of cane per acre.
That's interesting. So effectively saying that maybe the logic of using those things and working it harder is actually decreasing yields over time. And that's the thing that results in a need for leaving it for a season as opposed to the other way.
That's so far been our experience. I mean, we don't know how long this is going to go on, but for us, the vinasse and chicken manure seems to work just great for us.
Great. That's interesting. It's kind of been our experience as well down in Brazil, not to
really,
but yeah. People ask about that a lot, and I hadn't actually considered it that way, that actually may be the opposite of the logic that is often used, but it's not really required very often, if at all, to leave the fields fallow. And it's a lot of just that natural kind of usage. We have the bagasse as well, those kind of things. So I'll be really interested to see how that goes for you guys and kind of check back in on our side. But one other question related to sugarcane.
Sure.
Are you experimenting with other varietals to derive a particular flavor in the rum?
Well, what we did is when we started the distillery, when we were kind of getting ready, we actually went out to the villages and grew what they were growing, just to see what was kind of already being grown in the Belize. So we started about with 6 or 7 different types of cane that were visually and visually different, and from a visual point of view and from a juice point of view. And then we've narrowed it down to the 2 that we're currently doing right now. So right now we're sticking with our red and black cane, and I don't think we're going to add anything to that too much right now.
Got it.
Where those go.
Cool.
Waste management. I'm not a waste management engineer, so I can't say too much about what other guys are doing.
I am. Let me jump in on this.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm I'm not.
Yeah. I do know, however, that there is a large rum distillery in Puerto Rico that has,
who could that be?
Has piped 2 miles out into the sea to dump their liquid waste, and that's how they kind of get away with some of their the waste management. I know that they're improving their processes now, but that pipe still exists. What we're doing is we're kind of in a closed environment, right? So everything that comes in has to go out to the environment right around us, and we can't poison it or else we're out of business, right? All the vinasse, all the cane that comes in gets used either for, we press it for juice. It goes to the boiler. The boiler produces heat and CO2. The CO2 goes back out to the field and gets converted. The new plants use that CO2 to kind of grow the field again, right? The vinasse, the waste, the essentially cooked wine that we're done with after we've distilled the cane wine into rum, that gets put into a tank. We'll adjust the pH to make sure it's not too acidic, and then that goes back into the field. And any other wastewater we have, that has to go out to our surrounding area. So we have our own kind of wastewater treatment system. We have settling ponds that, we have bacteria that eat all those things up before it gets basically filtered through the ground, before it ends up going out to the wetlands close by. So all our stuff is kind of, like round trip. We try to use everything that comes in and goes out with basically is, zero impact on the surrounding area. The only thing I say that we need to get better at is we're not large enough to generate our own electricity. So we actually have to buy electricity from the grid. So that's one area where, we're definitely not carbon neutral on that. And there is, from whatever the electrical plant is burning to generate electricity is something that we're putting out there. But hopefully when we get a little bit bigger, we'll be able to generate our own electricity. But like I said, everything is, everything that comes in, we use and we treat before it goes out.
Got it.
And okay, so product additives. I don't want to say standard product additives, but certainly, when guys make rum, that there is a lot of loose rules as far as rum making goes. So you'll see some producers with, it seems like the older their rum is, the sweeter it is. You'll see, 4-year rums that are dark as Coca-Cola. And, as a guy that's using used oak bourbon barrels, it doesn't get that dark in 5 years. So, there is a lot of things that get added to it that, maybe not inherently bad, but I don't think it's honest to the people buying your product, right? If someone wants their rum sweetened, it's fine. They can add sugar to it. But I think, there's certain maybe a little bit of, color matching that you need to do to kind of, have a consistent product. That I guess is fine. But if your 12-year-old rum tastes like vanilla, it's not coming from the barrels. It means somebody added vanilla to it. For us and a lot of guys, we think that there are others like us that have, the integrity of our product is that we're trying to use all natural ingredients. We're doing it in an organic fashion, and it is what it is, right? We have the sugarcane juice, we add yeast, we ferment it, we distill it, we add some rainwater to proof it, out it goes. The only flavoring component that's in our rum is whatever comes from the barrel when we put it in the barrel. Everything else is, what you see is what you get.
A couple of things on that, Ed, and that's good to hear. One is that gals make rum too, just to make sure you know.
Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry.
No, all good. And then the other is that it's interesting. I had Bailey Pryor on, who owns Real McCoy, and he's really a masochist because he and his wife figured out that they could add the literal nutrition facts to the label. They fought the TTB to add the nutrition facts to the back of their label, which I admire. Don't really have an interest in fighting that fight, but I think it it's great because when rum and sugarcane spirits are made the right way, it's really just that simple, right?
Well, they source that product from Foursquare, right?
They do. Yep.
Yeah.
I
have a lot of respect for Seal. He's a little bit of a grump, but he does have a lot of integrity in his product.
I got no comments on that. But yes, but I think it's just the construct of more. Hey, let's be really transparent about what's in here, because so much stuff, and it tends to be the bigger brands, right? You really have no idea, and there's usage of numbers that don't actually mean what they look like they mean on quick glance, right? So I think it's exciting to have a number of people in sugarcane spirit universe talking about this stuff, being transparent, finding ways to make labels more transparent, and calling people out on it. So I think it's moving very much in the right direction.
Yeah, we think so.
Cool.
We've already done the video. So now we're going to hand it off to Julie, and she's got some things to talk about as far as industry trends go.
Thanks, Ed. That was great.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, that was great.
So I've owned bars in New York City. I opened my first bar starting in 2003, and back at that time, nobody really.
Good bar, by the way. Had many a good night there.
What's that?
I had many a good night at that bar.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So Flat Iron Lounge, 2003, and back then nobody really talked about sustainability in cocktails or in spirits. And early on, I would go on distillery trips that people would invite me to, and so often I would ask questions about, is there vanilla added to this, and things like that, and couldn't get any answers. So these days, sustainability is really at the very top of the list when it comes to trends in our industry. People want to, and especially bartenders, I work with mostly millennials, really, and millennials are demanding more information. Before they pick up your bottle, they want to know, if you're sustainable, if it's natural, and if you're being transparent about how you create your product. And many years ago, that wasn't really the case. And it was also just very hard to get any of that information. But more and more consumers are paying attention to the products that are out there and how they impact the environment. Back in the early Flatiron days, there were no brand ambassadors. A brand ambassador wouldn't come in and sit down and talk to you and answer your questions. It was really just the guys that were from the liquor distributor, and they would come in and say, "Hey, Toots, you should carry this rum, or you should carry this vodka." But it was very difficult to get any of the information about the products. So
I like that impression. The A.
Hey, Toots, that's really what I was.
New York. Hey, Toots.
I can't tell you how fantastic it was when Simon Ford, who was really the first brand ambassador, walked in my door and was somebody who embodied a brand and sat down with me and said, "This is why this product is great," and answered all of my questions. So I think that really was a good direction for us to go in, to have people who could talk to you about the brand, answer any of your questions, because we weren't getting that before.
When did that evolution happen? Like, what era are we talking about where you finally started seeing people who could speak to this a lot more in depth?
Yeah, well, I opened Flat Iron Lounge in 2003, and in came Simon at that time. But this was I would say maybe, it was probably 2008 or so before I think we started seeing a lot more of it, and more cocktail competitions and more brands getting involved with the bartenders and who were making their cocktails. Prior to that, nobody really talked to the bartenders so much, and they just assumed that the bar owners were all men. we always got emails, dear sir. But yeah, I mean, these days I think that, you know, it really is important for brands to lay it all out on the table. When Copalli came to me about working with them, you know, I had talked to a lot of brands over the years and just never really found one that I felt that I could connect my brand to. But, you know, being that, so I grew up in Honolulu and I've been around sugarcane quite a bit. And I have friends who grow small quantities of sugarcane and make their own rum. And, you know, after talking to them and hearing about this zero waste distillery and how they make the rum, you know, sugarcane juice, and every question that Elaine Duff and I had was answered. And it was the first time that I got to the end of the process and said, I absolutely want to work with this brand. And I want to make cocktails with it because they are doing right by the environment, and therefore we should support them, you know, and I feel that way in both of my bars. You know, I've noticed specifically at Leanda, where Ivy Mix is my partner, and she is a millennial. You know, I learned so much from Ivy and the staff over there, who do trend a little bit younger than we are across the street, and they, you know, they're not willing to take no for an answer. I mean, bars historically, cocktail bars are not a very sustainable thing. You know, we've got straws, we've got, you know, the waste is incredible. Water, ice, napkins, you know, and we over the last, you know, 5 or 6 years, we have seen a lot of growth in people trying to change that, and just in changing to metal straws, and not giving a napkin with every drink, and, you know, really just trying to be a little bit better about our carbon footprint.
Yeah, absolutely. We had Kelsey from Trash Tiki on, which was really fun.
She's incredible.
She's incredible. Great science, very fun science lesson, let's say.
Yeah.
But yeah, you talk about that. So beyond those things, are there other ways that you guys are thinking about it? And certainly I think Leanda is forefront in a lot of that you guys are thinking about, you know, how do we deal with this? And then also, how do we deal with this in this crazy pandemic universe of to-go drinks and what have you?
Yeah, I mean, that's been an interesting sort of side note to this whole thing, because we've been, you know, I feel like we were really on a very good track, and then the pandemic started, and it was like, oh, we need to-go cups, and in came plastic cups again, you know, or we never even used them in the past, but it was such a, you know, what are we going to do? We have to-go drinks or to-go cocktails, and cost became a big factor, you know, so we definitely have struggled a little bit with that, but we're trying to do our best and maintain that path that we're on, because it really is our responsibility to take care of the planet and to support brands that are honest and aren't, you know, just creating incredible amounts of waste.
Yeah, I think kind of back to the brand thing, and it's interesting to hear the perspective of somebody's kind of seen that evolution. What do you think, as for people that work with brands or have brands, like beyond obviously the great, so let's spend an hour together talking about all the nuance, are there simpler ways to communicate that, to cue that, or things that you guys want to know that those people can kind of easily put together in terms of information or communication on it?
From the brands?
Yeah, from the brands. Like, let's say you work for a brand, you have a brand. How do brands make it easier for people to talk to you and Ivy and your peers about this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it is, I tend to get inundated with people wanting to talk to me about this.
Exactly.
That I can't even keep up with all of my own stuff right now. But I mean, there's always, reaching out to us via email or sending us information is generally the best way to go about it. I mean, having somebody who represents your brand who can kind of stop by and say, hey, I'd really love to connect with you. Also, connecting with our bar managers first is oftentimes a good sort of road in, because they'll sort of field it to see, if it's a product that they know we absolutely are not going to use, they'll politely say thank you and take the information, but not pass it on to us. But I mean, at Leyenda, for example, obviously, we're small producers of tequila and mezcal and cachaça and pisco and rum. These are all the things that we're looking to support and wanting to learn about. So those are the products that really we want people to bring to us, especially if they fit our story. I think the biggest thing too is people doing their homework. I think going all the way back to early Flatiron Lounge days, I would have people come in who just didn't even know what we did there, trying to
right, sure.
because we were on their list of bars that they had to get behind,
Right.
But if it's not a good fit, Ivy oftentimes will have a whiskey distributor, whiskey people coming into Leyenda, and I mean, she doesn't carry very much whiskey, so you can have something that's fantastic, but she doesn't have time to talk to you, as opposed to a new fantastic single village mezcal. Of course she wants to taste that.
What is it? But the things that you might want to know about from like a sustainability standpoint, are they a lot of the things that Ed touched on here? Is it kind of like, where are you getting this? Where's the water? What's the impact of electricity, all those kind of things? Yeah,
exactly. Now, when I originally talked to the Copalli team, all of my questions were answered right there, and the ones that some of the questions that people asked, about the varietal of sugarcane, for example, those were some of the questions I had as well. So, I mean, oftentimes, in the past, I've gone to distilleries and can't, there's things hiding behind this area,
right
over there, so, I mean, I think Copalli did a very good job at putting it all out there, and speaking, in layman's terms, so to speak, not, something that was too much for people to understand. Or I have bartenders with varying degrees of knowledge. So, I think having something that's more simple sometimes is great, just so that you can go deeper if you want to, but
right.
that they can really, sink their teeth into.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we even on this show we have to think about, like, some people really want to go deep. They're asking these questions about canes. Some people want to get a broader perspective. We kind of lean on going deep, but yes, I agree. Like, when you're making a presentation to a group, you kind of want to give the top line, but have the knowledge to be able to answer the nuanced questions, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly, and know your audience. I mean, I'm sure, Tiki by the Sea, you have people who make rum, who know so much about it, and then you also have young bartenders who don't know what a pot still is. So I think that you really do have to be able to speak to everybody.
Got it. There's a question here. Where is Copalli currently sold? You guys want to speak to that?
We're currently distributing in California, New York, and Florida.
Got it. Right on.
Yeah.
Should we make a cocktail?
Yes, I'm ready.
Cool. Let me throw this up so everybody can see the spec if you want to make it at home.
Yeah. So, being from Hawaii, the Mai Tai is one of my favorite cocktails. And so I thought that I would show my Copalli version of the drink, which is the classic 1944 Trader Vic recipe. What I love about it is that I'm able to utilize both the Copalli white rum and the barrel rested in the cocktail. But I'm going to start, and whenever I just make a couple cocktails, I always juice my lime right into my glass. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. 3/4 of an ounce of fresh lime juice. That in there. And then I'm going to follow that up with a tiny bit of cane syrup. So I'm using a cane syrup rather than white sugar just because it has a little bit more flavor to it. Quarter ounce. Followed by a little bit of orgeat. And of course, orange curacao. And for the home bartenders over there, I always add the least expensive ingredients first, just in case I make a mistake, and then I haven't wasted my very expensive, delicious spirits.
Good idea. Especially for the home bartenders with my skill level.
So I'm going to start with 1 ounce of the Copalli white rum. And I love an agricole style rum in the Mai Tai just because the flavors are so much more apparent. I like the grassy notes that I get from it. So 1 ounce of Copalli white, and then 1 ounce of the Copalli barrel rested.
Could you speak about the barrel resting? How long is that aged and in what for people?
Yeah, well, so it's rested in oak barrels. Maybe Ed can talk about the length of time it spends in the barrel.
Ed, talk to us.
Yeah, so that's really a product that's aged under 1 year. We kind of like the profile, but we certainly aren't going to call it an aged rum. So it gets a little bit of barrel characteristics, a little color, but usually it's about 10, 11 months is the average age.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's often overstated, like it's all about time. To me, it's all about profile. When does it taste right,
All right, so I have I've got my glass of crushed ice that I've prepped here, and I'm going to shake it up.
Yeah. This would be a lot cooler if you were here making this and I could drink it.
Yeah, I wish I could pass it right through my screen to you.
Yeah, that's where we need StreamYard to up its game. A little teleporting action.
Right. And of course, just a mint sprig as a garnish. And you're in business.
Awesome.
Mai Tai, no pineapple juice.
There you
So
go.
many Mai Tais that are so different in Hawaii. I can't even count.
Yeah. Wow. Very good.
Iconic Mai Tai. Let me tell you how it is.
Oh yeah.
It's delicious. I did a great job.
There is a question here related to cocktails, actually. Is there a signature cocktail that showcases the strength of Copalli as well? I mean, obviously you've shown us this, looks delicious. Anything else you'd really lean towards?
For me, just a classic daiquiri. I think the daiquiri is the perfect drink to showcase any rum. It's just rum, lime, and sugar. So the flavor of the rum can't hide anywhere. So that's definitely one of my favorites. Whenever I taste a new rum, I make a Mai Tai, I make a daiquiri, and I make a Queen's Park Swizzle. And I make a classic mojito, and I taste it in all of those drinks as well as on its own. And then I make my, decision on what I think about that rum.
Queen's Park Swizzle is a great idea. I hadn't really thought of that as a base idea. One of my favorite things that I've had with our cachaça was from Sasha, which was just kind of the what? Now I'm blanking on it. What's the drink with the cucumber and the mint and the fruit?
Southside?
Sort of, but he had a different name for it.
Was this a Sasha special?
It was a Sasha special. Anyway, it's just like fresh made ingredients. What's that?
Rum, cucumber, mint, and fresh lime?
Yeah, with some berries on top. And yeah. What did he? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean it sounds like a rum Southside.
Yeah.
With berries on top.
Yeah. Could be. Amazing. Very cool. One more question for you. This is probably more for Ed. Can you tell us something about the working conditions at the distillery in the fields?
It's hot. It's hard work. The crews, they get regular, snack and water breaks, but it's a long day. They start basically 6 in the morning and work until about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. But they do get, we certainly pay them a better than average wage for farm workers, and we try to do right by the community. That's the best I can say about it.
Fair enough. Cool. Let me put up that cocktail again for everybody, in case you want to make it at home. Anything else that we haven't covered with you guys that you want to touch on?
I don't have anything else.
Yeah.
Awesome. While we have you, Julie, what's going on lately with you guys? How can people support?
Well, yeah, we are serving cocktails in parking spaces in front of the bars. And we've open for 25% indoor service. We just launched our new fall menu that has a delicious Copalli cocktail on it as well. It really, we just supporting by coming by and dining with us is really the best way. We've also just started doing some merchandise that we're selling and getting some holiday boxes together for sale, and we're doing our thing. We're making it happen, and hopefully we'll be able to stay open. We're just trying to get to the other side.
Understandable. Yeah, I think we're all thinking the same thing on that.
Yeah,
for sure. But I'm glad you guys are fighting the good fight. It's an honor to have you on here. We're gonna bring you back in a moment. We're gonna do our 5 questions here, so just hold on one moment. Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for your patience.
Oh, sure. Great information. I'm so thirsty after looking at that.
Seriously, it's so upsetting because all I do is watch these amazing cocktails go out.
So good.
I'm sitting over here, at best, sipping on some rum.
I'm having water.
There you go. Stay hydrated. All right.
Yes.
Ready? 5 questions.
5 questions. Okay. Is this like the Bravo show and I can plead the 5th?
You have to answer. Of course, you can make something up, but we wouldn't know the difference anyway. But
okay.
Weirdest thing you saw in Wildwood? Weirdest.
The weirdest. The retro looking hotel type. All the different businesses and establishments had this retro vibe that was so cool. I really enjoyed it.
It's like a museum, huh? It's pretty
wild. You're like the Jetsons or something like that.
There you go. You're walking around the set of the Jetsons. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Describe Steve Casey in 1 sentence.
Lovely and charming and tell it like it is and candid.
Oh, there you go. That's true.
That's
all those things are true. I see the plants back, by the way, Steve.
Oh yeah, look.
Ooh.
Got him.
There it is.
New leaves. He's looking great.
I have one right next to
Oh, you got one?
Whoa,
Wow.
look at that one.
my piece of
That's cool. All right.
next
All right.
question.
All right. Favorite memory from Tiki by the Sea?
My favorite memory was at the alumni Tiki by the Sea at the Polynesian bar. That experience was really nice. I got to experience Polynesian culture, which I had never seen in person before.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That whole thing is just something else.
Yeah, I can't wait to go back.
Their tour of the bar in the back, like when we went to the back and all those crazy spirits they had up.
service station.
Yeah, it was wild.
Like the way
How
they
about The Office?
cocktails,
Yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah.
They have like articles from like 1973 with photo. I mean, yeah, quite
Pretty
the
cool.
place. Quite the place. All right. Favorite meal in Wildwood? Favorite meal?
Favorite meal in Wildwood. I'm gonna have to say it was your parents' boil.
Oh yeah.
It
There
was
you go.
it was made with love.
Really true.
That's basically 95% of the answers on that. I might need to change it because it's going to go to my dad's head, probably.
Good. I enjoy a great boil. Yes.
I'll have to tell him. Tell us about Chicago. What's going on?
So well, it's pandemic everywhere. It's a little scary right now in Chicago. Our numbers are rising, and so our mayor has just announced yesterday that we are in our surge that they've been warning us about. So I guess I'm going to start hunkering down as much as I can. Still have to work. And
Yeah, tell us about what you're doing. Tell us about what you're up to.
So I'm the brand ambassador for Uncle Nearest Whiskey. We are a premium Tennessee whiskey out of Shelbyville, Tennessee. And our brand was created to honor the legacy of Nearest Green, who's the first African-American master distiller on record, and the man that taught and mentored Jack Daniels. So we like to refer to him as the godfather of Tennessee whiskey because there wouldn't be a Tennessee whiskey category without him. So,
good pitch. I'm sold. Really pitchy. Nailed it. Wow. All right. Very cool. I've seen the brand out a lot. I'm sure you're going to rock it. That's awesome. Good luck with the surge. I'm sure we're all going to be surging. Yes. Stay safe.
Yes, everyone watching, please be safe and wear your mask and stay healthy.
Right on. All right. Thanks for being here. Next week, we have Chalky and Doom Tiki creating cultural appreciation through cocktails, sponsored by Avoir Cachaça, great brand, and Real McCoy. Super excited about that. Let's bring everybody back. Julie, you rock.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for being here. Good luck with everything. I look forward to being at your again in the not too distant future when I can actually fly somewhere.
Thanks a lot, Pete.
Ed, get outside.
Cheers.
Cheers. Enjoy that cocktail.
I will.
Joy for us all.